Welcome, everybody. Scott Stevens here on Another Perspective. As we do the second show for the week, I do Another Perspective, this half-hour-ish show on Mondays and Wednesdays at 8 o'clock Mountain Time. And we kind of talk about the things that are going on in the world, what we can do as citizens to try to begin to move beyond some of the issues we see right ahead of us, and learn from lessons in the past, and how we can, quite frankly, get along. If we can learn and just choose to get along, we're going to get a whole lot farther than we would otherwise. And history is replete with lessons along this line. All right. I was trying to get onto this new site called NewTube. We'll see what happens. It may not work. I'm getting a little error right there. We'll give this, let's save that and see if we can't reconnect with that. It's the first time, and we have to kind of do these things live to see if that actually hits. So good to see you guys coming on there. I'll pop over to comments. All right. Today, Veterans Day. It's kind of an illustrious memorializing the sacrifice, the greatest sacrifice that so many men and women have made as soldiers. And then there's the collateral damage of these wars. And that is kind of not something that is terribly talked about, but it is still a scar that we all endure and have to live with. I was rather fortunate that my immediate father didn't have to serve in Vietnam. He was just kind of at that age where he scooted on through. My grandfather had a disability in which he ended up in an architect's and an inspection plant, so he was not on the front lines. So that was kind of the upside, at least in my family, and I just had straight up issues with authority and chose college instead. So we'll head on over to this. All right, so that's what I want to talk about tonight, is the need to be right keeps us from freedom. We think we're free. We think we're living in a free society, but if we're angry, we get up angry. We watch TV and we end up angry. Are we truly free? Or are we prisoners inside of our own thought stream, bound by our own emotions that thoughts cannot let go of? And we keep mulling these over and look for reinforcement. And then we had some friends a couple of years back, and there was a term for this. I didn't know what it was. It was kind of new to me, though, once I heard the term, and that was called negative intimacy. And this is what we're experiencing on a national scale, is negative intimacy. That's what happens when we turn on the news and the TV, is we're dealing with negative intimacy. We love to hate. We get such juice out of it. All right, so back to the celebration for the day. Veterans Day. Just a little factoid, because this is how I tend to begin these little these episodes. Veterans Day originated as Armistice Day, and that's how I remembered it, being the history buff that I am, because on November 11, 1919, so 101 years ago today, the first anniversary of the end of World War I, Congress passed a resolution in 1926 for an annual observation, and November 11 became a national holiday beginning in 1938. Unlike Memorial Day, Veterans Day pays tribute to all American veterans, living or dead, but especially giving thanks to the veterans who served their country honorably during war or peacetime. And you would think, since we haven't been in a big war, certainly a declared war in a spell, that we wouldn't have that many veterans, but indeed we do. Veterans Day occurs on November 11th every year in the United States to honor the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month of 1918 that signaled the end of World War I, known as Armistice Day. In 1954, Dwight Eisenhower officially changed the name of the holiday from Armistice Day to Veterans Day. And then in 1968, the Uniform Holidays Bill was passed by Congress, which moved the celebration of Veterans Day to the fourth Monday in October. The law went into effect in 1971, but just 4 years later, in 1975, President Gerald Ford returned Veterans Day back to November 11 due to the important historical significance of the date. Thank you, President Ford. Veterans Day commemorates veterans of all wars. Great Britain, France, Australia, and Canada also commemorate veterans of World War I and World War II on or near 11 November. Canada has Remembrance Day, while Britain has Remembrance Day Sunday, the second Sunday of November. We've had a lot of flag waving lately because of the elections. And so the flag, depending on your point of view, depending on which policies and which, in a way, I want to say party has been wrapped up in it, can either excite you, bring about that surge of patriotism or a twinge of being triggered because you're not in alignment with that other side's points of view. Good to see you guys, Jane and Robin, coming on. But our flag still flies after nearly 250 years, not because the wind moves it. It flies with the last breath of each soldier who died protecting it. And that's going to have some importance in time as we realize, and there is plenty of art circulating now with a tattered flag. And I have seen tattered flags flying. And I really kind of liked the flag as a kid. Mom's got a picture of me, flying this thing, and I was but 4 years old. And even through, I was probably 10, 11, 12, and Flag Day was my favorite holiday. Not the 4th of July, not Labor Day, Memorial Day, but Flag Day. And I really, in our little rural Idaho home, wanted to put up a nice big pole so I could fly the flag. And we are under the flag right now, a nation at a crossroads, where the divisions have really gotten to the point where there's so much angst and anxiety and anger to one's neighbors, friends, family members because of differences of opinion on policies. And that has been fueled by the steady diet of anger. Humanity has been pitted brother against brother because of policies. The need to defend our positions keeps us bound to an illusion where none are right, but all are imprisoned. What are our brothers and sisters overseas fighting for, especially since war has not been declared in upwards of 3 generations? Might the real battle for this nation's safety and security and our liberty and happiness be a battle that is already underway, but here on the home soils? What if we were to look at the news and truly accept that a battle is underway, and if it's just right or left, one or the other? There's a third way. There's a middle road. There is a way to where we can find common ground amongst all the chaos, amongst all the anger that is out there. Politics is nothing but the show to divide and distract. We talked about this on Monday. Divide by policy, divide by race, divide by wealth, divide by sex, divide by religion, divide by education, divide by any means necessary. Division is the tool of the conqueror. Anger toward each other is their reward. And all of a sudden, anger becomes our own prison. When one is angry, one loses the ability to discern. One loses the ability to remember correctly. One loses the ability to rationally think and solve and work their way through problems. And we all know we have problems in our lives, especially with the economy being what it is right now, what it may and might about to go through once again, with lockdowns coming down like irons across the world and other cities saying we have to lock down once again. What will that do to each one of us emotionally? What will that do to us economically? And if anger continues to build, how can we think our way through this? How can we talk our way through those coming confrontations that are inevitable in our future? So what we focus on grows. That only makes sense, doesn't it? This is a universal law. What we focus on grows. What beast do you want to feed when you open your eyes in the morning? Which one? It is a decision you and I reside in every single moment of every single day. And this is why the media is such a powerful tool. Why? Because we are willing to give them so many hours of our precious attention, hours and hours, while we focus on their chosen message each and every day. This, regardless of whether that message is truthful or not. And that's kind of a scary thing, because if we look back through history, it has been proven time and time again that the media was used to guide the people, guide public opinion, to guide our acceptance of an outcome that was already written by the overseers. And who are those overseers? What is their agenda? What is their desire for mankind? Is it freedom? Is it free communication? Is it freedom of thought? Freedom of movement? Is it just freedom and liberty guaranteed or at least promised by the Constitution? Is that what they would like to see reign across this land, above which and for our soldiers, our brothers, our sisters, our fathers and grandfathers have fought for? Is that what they would like to guarantee the next generation a nice, healthy dose of? Is liberty? I kind of tend to think otherwise. Each war has required a compliant media. And might they be setting us up for a civil war? And in this image, there may be 4 people holding signs of hate. Those might even be staged. I've seen that before. And when the media focuses those eyes, those cameras, those anchors upon this and staging this and making us believe, think, swallow the story that this is the majority, when behind the media lies you and I. Each of us knowing inside, because that moral compass is still not yet corrupted, of what is right and what is wrong, that we have hope, that we can still love one another, that we still honestly like our neighbors. In fact, we'll do almost anything for them if needed, because they're a fellow human being, a fellow child of God, if you will. So we have this apparatus draped around the planet. It controls the media. It writes the narratives inside stories, inside sitcoms, inside movies, inside songs, inside award shows, inside everything you will consume through the television set, through the streaming services. Our little bit of freedom has been the YouTubes, been the Facebooks, where we can communicate without their filter until recently. And this was something that I'd seen on an HBO series. I think we're in our 3rd or 4th series. I think it's just the 3rd, called Westworld. And it, honestly, is a violent show where you have these beings, the gal represented in this, not quite human, but there is a consciousness present. And as we treat, some people treat animals less than other human beings because they don't see them as sentient. When does sentient begin? When does that aspect of consciousness become worthy of your respect? At what point? There are still some religions that don't believe your pets have souls. And if they don't have souls, then pain to them doesn't matter because they don't have souls. And that is a very, very scary threshold to go down to if you can dismiss life that easily. And in this person is whispering in this, I don't want to use the term, but this sentient robot, if you will. These violent delights have violent ends. And because they are viewed as less than human, they treat them without that kind of respect, without that kind of dignity. And there is absolutely this culture which views humanity as a cattle. We're in a corral. We're to be moved. We're to be used to their violent ends. And hence wars, hence poverty, hence the injustices that you and I grimace away when we see them on the screen because it hurts. We have empathy. Empathy is just a beginning of getting out of this place. And I didn't realize that this violent delights quote was actually Shakespearean. And of course it makes sense, the brilliance and the inspiration that man contained. These violent delights have violent ends, and in their triumph die like fire and powder, which, as they kiss, consume. Like attracts like. And as they do and fester, this anger, this violence across humanity through film, through serial TV, through all that we consume, through the news, we absorb this violence. and that becomes a prison. And so these entities upon which are fostering this consciousness upon humanity are so prideful, so arrogant that their symbology of their influence, of their impact on society is everywhere. If you can identify it, you will see it in nearly everything. They're so prideful, so arrogant, so certain that they control it all until they don't. And the decision is, do we quit disliking one another and actually join arms, become united in this movement? So, politics is nothing but a show to divide and distract. Divide by race, divide by wealth. And if they can get along behind closed doors and even now in public, why can't we? All right, Thomas Jefferson. I never considered a difference of opinion in politics, religion, and philosophy as a cause for withdrawing from a friend. And certainly during the Revolution, the forming of the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, there were hot discussions about whether a strong centralized government or whether it should be more spread out and states would have greater individual power against this central power. And that was the great discussion. And they settled on that document that was ratified. It was signed. And those that signed it, that and the Declaration of Independence, many, many did meet violent deaths because in their action, they stood up against those that would continue to have them enslaved. And this is a point where there is a greater beast on the horizon. This great reset upon which we have discussed in several shows in the immediate past. They're there if you want to go look. This reset, this excitement for violent delights is not far off. Politics is nothing but the show to divide and distract. And as we saw the Great Depression and COVID, a financial reset, those events may not be that far away. The end of the Depression was stamped on this gold piece and dated 1932, but upon it, the Star of David, the swastika, the all-seeing eye, and the four-leaf clover. And before the war, 1932, the war wouldn't begin until 39, so we had 7 years to go. All symbols were united, the Star of David, swastika, and the all-seeing eye. But then World War II saw those first two in the back, the Star of David and the swastika, labeled and assigned a role in this epic battle that was yet to come. And yet this also cemented for the future, for these succeeding three generations, one was a victim and one was an aggressor. The Jews versus the Nazis. And that angst, that agitation between those two has continued to fester and creates conflict even from that war and to this point forward. And what is the symbol on top of it all? It is that all-seeing eye. And this is all according to the plan. So, all of those thoughts that we entertain all day long, they're our own prison. And if we could really just look at each other and have that aha moment, then we could help each other. Then we could leave free. And that neither of us has to die. That we could leave this mental trap, this prison of anger, and forge a future that serves each and every one of us. My partner had a dream last night. Two bald women bound on a beach, taped with the wrists together. And it was known that they had to fight one another for one to survive, one to live. And out from the beach and into the seas grew, the waves built, knowing that there was an impending chaos. They knew they had to fight one another. And then in a moment, they realized that they could cooperate, that they could help each other get free of the ties that bound them. that if we agree to work together, cooperation will get both sides free. And with both sides free, those overlords would be helpless to put us down, to keep us in the corral, to keep us as cattle. We would once again, or maybe we never have been truly, a sovereign species, a sovereign race. And this would be the beginning of the end, because the thing that they fear the most is us together. But it is our need to be right, to put the gun to the other head. If that gun is thought, if that gun is speech, if that gun is just internal feelings that subjectively you never express, but they remain in the ethers, they remain in that vibrational field. Those feelings that you don't express exist. They don't go away just because you don't say them. They exist. And so, whether you're walking down the street, on the bus, you see one person or the other, and those thoughts come across your head. Either you embrace them and you love them up, those thoughts of anger, of hatred. And this is essentially what is happening. It is your gun to another's consciousness, another's being, even if it remains in the subtle realms. Let's just review this, and we're going to keep this short tonight. Politics is the show to divide and distract. What is going on behind the scenes? What are they preparing mankind for? Because this kind of a show, this kind of censorship, suppression, action does not happen without an agenda that is ready to go. And it's almost as if they're desperate to get to the finish line, to get us to accept that we must fight each other rather than assist one another. And the need to be right keeps that agreement, that cooperation from happening. And this is the power of social media, is that each and every one of us brings our own matrix of knowledge, our own experiences, our own understandings, our own wisdom. And it is the smallest of insights from another that can open up a flood of information and understanding within you, and reverse back into them, as you then have this dynamic bouncing across from one another. And if that were to be allowed on such a scale as these platforms have reached, God help us all, it would be amazingly powerful. And that scares the living hell out of them. And I choose those words carefully. And the ability to change one's mind, it is a powerful release to say, I was wrong. I misunderstood. I didn't see it that way. A little change of view, a little humility, and great things can rush forth. It is a dam that is held back and resisted the movement of consciousness. And once that dam can break, once that dam can even leak, then we have progress. And that, quite frankly, is the function of time. That is simply why time was created, is to move us from one moment to another, from one experience that worked in the previous moment. You take that same experience mentally, because we won't let go, emotionally because we're so attached to it and have so much energy into it, but yet we find ourselves in a different moment, in different circumstances. Does that previous belief then serve you? And if it doesn't, it'll feel a little uncomfortable. And then the next moment comes. And then that thing that comforted you 3 moments ago, 4 moments ago, 5 moments ago, suddenly feels completely out of place, because you look around and the world has changed. It's not the same. And yet it's as if you're stuck in time and become crystallized in what you're thinking, feeling, and believing. You're a time traveler. You left in 1948, you pop in 2018. The world is different. You still think, believe, act, behave, and interact the way you did in 48. But here it is, 2018. Social norms have changed. Expectations have changed. It's all different. But yet we're holding on to the way things were. And the need to be right keeps us from being free in that moment of time. And these laws are principles. principles of the universe. And once they're understood, truly understood, and then practiced, then we can make great, great strides forwards on so many scales. So on this Veterans Day, those that have sacrificed life, family, limb, health, mental well being, because so many scars, you come home whole bodied, you're not the same. You go to sleep, and those moments, those traumatic moments from the past, are still there. We can't let go of those because it's still within the memory banks, it's still within the subconscious, and how you felt. You're shell shocked. And that was the term in World War I for post traumatic stress disorder. You were shell shocked. And we turn on the TV and the news, and it's almost as if you get PTSD. You become shell shocked by this constant inundation of what is out there. Together, we can leave that beach. We can leave and work each other out through cooperation, through understanding, through patience, and of the letting go of the need to be right. We can grow as people, as families, as neighborhoods, as communities, and ultimately as a species of human beings. There's nearly 8 billion of us, and we're all different. And we're all at unique and different places on the greater journey home. That's what's missing, is that understanding that each of us needs that space to grow and needs that space to express in our own yet individual ways. Sometimes we misspeak, and that's okay. And sometimes we just need an extra day to let go of that consciousness, that state of mind, that state of being that we held yesterday. All right, the democracy will cease to exist when you take away from those who are willing to work and give it to those who will not. All right, where's my end card? It is not in here. There it is. That's the one. Bloody truly, I've scooped across two of them. All right, here's two of our other Metadime shows for now. Vicky's Coffee Break Show airs weekdays at 11 o'clock Mountain. Tracy's Unlocked show airs 5 o'clock. The time changes. 5 o'clock Mountain Time as well on Tuesdays and Thursdays. It's Friday in Australia where she is located. Then here I am at 8 o'clock on Mondays and Wednesdays Mountain Time. All right, we've got great changes. I guess that's not a problem of admitting it at this point. We all recognize it. We all see it. But we're all going to have to get there one way or another. We can go there fighting and mom, your dad, calling you by your middle name. Robert Scott, back to your room. We don't need to be put into timeout. We're bigger than that. We're adults. Aren't we? Aren't we? We can do this. And on Veterans Day, we can step up. We can grow up. And we can admit that there might be something bigger going on than the story we're telling ourselves and letting others tell us. All right, guys, that'll be it for the night. Good to see you guys on there commenting. I appreciate that. And we'll hit those. Yes, Lisa, Robin. And I guess we'll do a call shortly, Robin. All right, guys, have a great night. I'll talk to you. Well, I guess weather's coming right up. 30 minutes or so. I kind of these late nights. I'm mentally done by now. All right, guys, have a great night. In the meantime, please, all we have to do is get along. It's not that difficult. Hey, Pagan Tree. Hiya, my YouTubers. Have a great night. And if you want to watch this later, hit replay and hashtag replay so I can know where you are, and even a city location. That's always nice to know where you're tuning in from. Have a great night.